Now, how about them damn Celtics?
And we are back with another How About Them Celtics video. Sam and I are here recording Tuesday, January 28th, and we're talking about threes, but not the Celtics threes. So Zach Cox of the Boston Herald put together a list, and the list on Twitter says, since Christmas, at least 12 players have set or tied their season highs for made three-pointers in games versus the Celtics, and they listed them all: Dylan Brooks, Gabe Vincent, Derek Jones, et cetera, et cetera. You can see it on the screen there. And the Celtics are, I believe he put out a quote tweet of their record in said games, et cetera, on top of that. He said, yes, 5 losses in the games outlined, 1-point win after a failed buzzer beater, 3-point win after a failed buzzer beater, and an OT win as well, and then a 12-point win over the Jokic-less Nuggets. So these are, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. I believe this is. I think these games are like the same games. So that means they are 5 and 9, and then the other 4 games are as outlined on the screen. And then I followed this up with some more before Christmas that were Pascal Siakam, Nikola Vucevic, Larry Nance, Keon Johnson, Craig Porter, Trevor Queen. They were 3-3 in those games, but I misread Zach's tweet because these aren't season highs; these are career highs. I thought that's what Zach was doing too, which is even. Celtics are just allowing a 3-point party this season.
It's so funny, like the memories of some of those games popping into my head. The Vucevic one was fucking crazy. Guy was just going berserk making threes. Craig Porter Jr. never heard of him before that day. Comes in the NBA Cup game and has this incredible start. There's part of this that is unlucky. There's part of this that is strategy. If you want to, I mean, we talked about it a little bit on the post-game recap yesterday. The Celtics came to the podium and basically said, we didn't expect Dylan Brooks to make 10 threes. Very fair. Very fair. No one did. It's by design that he is the one that they forced to beat them. They all came out and said it. And to their credit, they accomplished their goal. I think Tatum said they wanted to take Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, and Şengün out and not allow them to do much. Those 3 guys combined to score 30 points. Dylan Brooks and Amen Thompson both individually outscored that group with 33 with Thompson and 36 for Brooks. The Celtics, since Missoula has really gotten comfortable, have made it a point to lean into the odds, lean into the math. And they have said to themselves, well, we don't think Caleb Martin is going to beat us. We don't think Craig Porter Jr. is going to beat us. Can't blame him. Yet, there has been a significant amount of success from these guys that they have singled out as the whatever guys this year. It's not luck at this point. It is by design, and it feels like something needs to shift. I think there's value. The Caleb Martin one is a very tough one because that was a day that what they were doing was justified. Philadelphia was healthy that day. Embiid played pretty well. He wasn't incredible because Horford did a good job on him. Maxey was the real superstar. He was getting anything he wanted. He was blowing by guys on the perimeter, which could be another root of this problem, which we can talk about. And they had no answer for him. So they had no choice but to help off of somebody. They had to help off of somebody. And it was Caleb Martin. But there are times that they just go into games without anybody being hot, without any guy being a dominant scorer that they have to game plan and send the entire team at, where they're just like, whatever. Yeah, we'll let this guy beat us. There's no way he's going to shoot that well for the entire game. And that's where it becomes a problem. But again, like the perimeter defense hasn't been what it was last year either.
Listen, earlier in the season when we talked about this, like way earlier, and I've since changed my tune, which I'm going to talk about, but I was fine with the math, right? Because it statistically makes sense. But when your offense isn't good enough, when it clearly hasn't worked time and time again, something has to change. Like Joe Mazzulla earlier this season, I asked him a question. He was like, you got to live by principle, not by feeling. Process over results. But at what point are you going to allow the results to help organize your process, because it's gotten to that point. Like we're past the point of, oh, we'll live by the process and be okay with the results. The results aren't
Bad
working.
if you're starting to turn.
The results are not working. So something clearly has to change, in my opinion. Like you can't live like this anymore. And I know the Celtics have a good record, right? They're one of the best teams in basketball. Still, they're the fourth best team. They have a fine record, whatever. But like, there's a point where you can control what you can control. And at the end of the day, as backwards as it may sound, you can't always control if your own shots are going to fall, right? You can't. You can shoot, you can practice, you can do whatever you want. You can control how you play defense. You can control who you go to on defense. And the Celtics, in my opinion, have one of the best defensive lineups in basketball, and they're choosing to deploy it in a way as if they have like glaring weaknesses. They don't. Like they're choosing to play defense like they're the Charlotte Hornets instead of the Boston Celtics, which doesn't make sense to me anymore. And I've said this in the past. I'll say it again. I like this type of strategy more in a playoff series. I know it failed against the Heat that one time, but like by and large, it makes sense to do it in a playoff series where things get really like down to the nitty gritty, when teams are obsessively trying to go to their guys, when it's like, use the Nuggets in a series against the Nuggets, they're going to go to Jokic on 80% of possessions instead of 50, and Jamal Murray is going to have the ball a million times. Then it makes sense to be like, okay, let's make Russ beat us, because they will not want to do that. But in the regular season, where it's a game-to-game example, and teams are pretty okay with just like, we'll play the ball movement. We don't need to force it to our stars because we're okay with that, and we just want to bet the best shots. It's just not going to work out. And you've seen so many now examples of players having, season best performances or career best performances shooting from three. And it's largely because the Celtics are giving them the space to do that. I mean, not to be cliche, but the definition of insanity is doing the same shit over and over and expecting a different result. You're not getting different results. You're using the same process and the same results are happening, and it's not a good result.
I love that you've turned. Because listen,
It just doesn't make sense anymore.
There's no disputing it. Like, I'm very reactive. I get pissed off about things pretty quickly. Like, Jack is much more even keeled than I am. He's much more patient. Like, real life, I'm a very impatient person. It is what it is. But to see Jack start to like come over to my side and be like, this is a little bit ridiculous now. I think that should be like, Jack is the Derek White of Celtics takes, where if he is starting to side with something that is originally an extremist take, that's when you know it's starting to become a real significant trend, real problem. Because listen, man, this isn't a casino. Like, you're not the house. The house doesn't always, clearly you don't always win the house. You never win at home anymore. But like, this isn't a situation where you're the blackjack dealer and the players have to try and beat you. Like, you're not playing with skewed odds. Guys in the NBA are in the NBA for a reason, and they are allowed to make open shots if you give them open shots. This isn't just we will win in the end no matter what because the odds say so. You mentioned it last night, and it really stuck with me. The Doc Rivers quote about being like, well, the expected shots said this. Like, you can't lose games and go up there and be like, well, we were supposed to win,
Well,
but
and I even get that. Like, I get where Doc was saying. I get why Joe Mazzulla believes in some things like this. But where it's gotten to for me is, you really don't think Kristaps can guard Alperen Şengün one-on-one? You really don't think that Drew Holiday can guard Fred VanVleet one-on-one and then send help in the paint? You really don't think that Jaylen Brown can guard Jalen Green one-on-one? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense to me. And I get it more. Your example about Christmas was perfect, because not only did Maxey have it going, but like, Joel Embiid's one of the best players in the world when he's healthy, right? You look at like
at that point,
the finals.
Yes.
Look at the finals. Luka is one of the most incredible offensive players we've ever seen with our eyes, and Jokic the same thing. So I get helping off some of those guys. Like, I get it against the Nuggets a little bit with Russ, because you want to set, even though Jokic didn't play, and it worked in the finals. The Rockets are one of the worst offensive teams in the league. Why bend to their will? That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make it. It's just like, this is the equivalent of like when you play blackjack and there's the spot where you can put your side bet to play match the dealer, and you're like, man, I don't know if I should put the $5 down, but whichever one I pick, I have to stick to, so I'm not playing with regret if it hits or doesn't hit. The Celtics are so married to it, and I get it.
Yep.
Like, I don't think you can be as reactive as like somebody like me is as an NBA head coach. Otherwise, you would just be like in shambles all the time, consistently making tweaks that maybe you don't have to make. And I don't even think that they need to abandon this altogether. It's just have another strategy. There's something to this where they're over helping because they are caught up in mismatches. Like last night, for example, Houston did a lot to get Şengün guarded by Drew Holiday. They were running screens and everything. There's part of this that you don't have to give up a switch on every single screen. You just don't. A lot of these are go screens. A lot of these are like you can fight through it. You can get
Or just
there.
switch, and you have the guys to switch.
Well, that's what
Or
they're
just
doing.
don't. But
They switch,
no,
and then Holiday is guarding the big guy.
but
And
then switch and live with it. But like that's even fine with me.
Okay.
Switch and live with it. Like the problem, in my opinion, and I get what you're saying, and I agree, but like the problem is not the switching. The problem is if you're gonna switch, you have to be okay with the switch, or else do what you're saying and don't switch, because that ruins everything else.
it's just gotten to a point where, like, I don't think we can all sit here and be like, they're just getting unlucky. They'll be back. Like, I don't know. It's been like 2 months now. They haven't looked very good since the beginning of December, and we're almost at February. We're 2 weeks away from the All-Star break. I think it's time to take the heads out of the asses and start playing winning ball again. And there's a lot of things to fix. The offense isn't pretty either. The threes aren't falling there. Maybe it's that they sold their soul with all the 3-point makes last year, and now they're paying the consequences with water over the long term finding its level. But it's just it is just an enigma at this point, because in theory what they're doing should work, but it doesn't. Like, they are repeatedly being told these guys are NBA players, they're going to make the open shots. Whether you believe it or not, it'll happen.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me anymore. Like I get it to a degree. In a playoff series, maybe I'm okay with it, but we've seen too many examples of these quote unquote outliers that they're not outliers anymore. Like it's the what remember in school when they showed us like plot charts and there was like the something outlier way off to the side, and they're like, oh, we'll get rid of that one. What is that called? Far outlier on graph name. It's called
It's like mean median mode.
It's just a far outlier, I think, or identifying outlier. There's something like maybe it's just an outlier, but when you have a bunch of those, it's no longer an outlier. It is just part of the fucking graph. like it's not an outlier anymore. So I don't know, man. Let us know what you think down below. We appreciate y'all for tuning in. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to How About Them Celtics, and I'll let Sam take it out.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening and watching. Just like the Celtics, leaving guys open, we'll be here every single day, no matter what. You can subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. Jack and I are dropping new videos at 5 a.m. Full pods drop Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Game recaps are up the morning after each game. And other videos are on the channel, like this one, in between, to keep you up to date with all things Celtics. We're also streaming pregame live for a half hour before every single game. It's a ton of fun. Come hang out. It's always a good time with the live chat. You can find us on Spotify and Apple too. All pods and game recaps are up there for you. So if you just want the audio versions, follow us. They'll go right to your feed. Leave a 5-star review. We'd appreciate that very, very much. You can email us, hbtcpod@gmail.com. Tell us what you think of the defense. Tell us what you think of the inconsistencies. We'd love to hear from you. hbtcpod@gmail.com. The socials are at How About Them Cs for Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Facebook is just the name of the podcast. All streams are there. They're on YouTube. They're on Twitter. Jack's Twitter is at Jack Simone NBA. Mine's at Sam LaFrance NBA. That's it for us. Bye.
Taco, come on.
Taco's having some fun here.
That is bogus. These guys are ridiculous.